Just about 6 years ago, Ford decided to make their first ever EV in the modern age, and they called it the Mustang Mach-E. And people had questions. People were outraged. How dare you call it the Mustang Mach-E? You're diluting the brand. This makes no sense. Call it anything else besides a Mustang. But here we are in 2026, and the Ford Mustang Mach-E not only is one of the best-selling EVs in its class, going head-to-head with the Tesla Model Y, Ioniq 5, Volkswagen ID4, but it's also a better seller than the Ford Mustang, at least in 2024 and 2025. And I've had this question: how is that possible? What makes this crossover so alluring? Why do people love this EV from Ford? And I think after a week of testing this vehicle, I've come to that conclusion. I've come to the answer that I've been searching for. And in today's video, I want to check out what the Ford Mustang Mach-E has to offer. I was going to check out the exterior, the interior, take it out for a test drive, give you guys my thoughts, my opinions on the Ford Mustang Mach-E after spending an entire week with this model, and see why the Mustang Mach-E, even though it might be diluting the brand, was a great addition to the lineup. So as always, let's begin with that pricing. For the 2026 Ford Mustang Mach-E we're taking a look at today, this is the premium. And for our model, we have the dual electric motors and all-wheel drive, giving us a starting cost of right around $44,000. However, we have about $10,000 worth of add-ons. And this includes the extended range battery, providing us 300 miles of range, but also, probably more noticeably, is the sports appearance package, which brings a lot to the table, including this gloss black front grille, giving the Ford Mustang Mach-E more of a conventional design, more gloss black bits for the lower portion of the front bumper, 19-inch alloy wheels, and we have red contrasting stitching for the interior, giving us a sportier vibe to this model. And that was the value proposition out of the Ford Mustang Mach-E. That's why it is worthy of the Mustang name, because it wasn't just a point A to point B vehicle like a Volkswagen ID4 or Nissan Ariya. This was a car designed to go head-to-head with that Tesla Model Y and to compete in all aspects, whether it is performance, practicality, maybe not so much the range, but you kind of get the gist of it, where Ford actually was successful in making an EV that was going to be fun and exhilarating, but also a car that an enthusiast could get behind the wheel of and truly enjoy. As you take a look at the exterior of the 2026 Ford Mustang Mach-E, not much has changed since it first arrived in late 2020. Up front, you are going to receive full LED headlights and LED turn signal indicators in that sequential design that does give you more of that traditional Ford Mustang appearance. For me, though, it is that front grille. Instead of being color matched like you are going to find on a Premium or a Select, this gives you, I think, a bit more definition to the front fascia. It matches the body lines found on the hood and along the side profile, and probably more importantly, gives you some idea of what a four-door Mustang is going to look like in 2028 or 2029. You're going to notice some more gloss black bits here as you take a look at the functional side air curtains, giving you better airflow and helping out with the aerodynamics of this car. And we also have functional air curtains for the lower portion of the front bumper that will open up when you are driving this car around. As we make our way over to the side profile, here we're going to have those 19-inch alloy wheels in a gloss black finish, matching the gloss black trim for the wheel arches and along the side profile. Calling this a crossover is a bit of a stretch because, as you can tell, it doesn't have a higher center of gravity, not a lot of ground clearance, so more like a lifted hatchback here. With the 19-inch alloy wheels, it's not going to be a main takeaway in terms of the ride quality. In fact, we'll talk about that during the test drive. Now, you will have gloss black side mirror caps to go along with turn signal indicators, and obviously we are going to have blind spot detection for added safety, and these gloss black side mirror caps do power fold. This gloss black also extends to the lower half of the windows, giving you a two-tone look found throughout. And then for the rear fascia, here we have the gloss black spoiler, which really stands out here, again letting you know this is more of a hatchback than a crossover. And if that wasn't enough, you have the sloping roofline as well, and I love the body lines. I love the body lines on this EV. It makes it look conventional, makes it look like a Mustang here. Then you have the taillights and the clear lens. I like that touch better than if they were red. And then for the lower portion of the rear bumper, here we have more gloss black trim, giving us continuity found throughout this model. But let me know what you think here about the Ford Mustang Mach-E. Even though a lot of you are going to be complaining about the fact that it is named a Mustang, it's still one of the better looking EVs in my opinion. But I want to know what your take is. In regards to the performance for this Ford Mustang Mach-E, obviously we don't have an engine, but we do have dual electric motors. And we have the extended range battery, which is probably more important here, because you get 300 miles on a full charge. But you also receive 370 horsepower and 500 pound-feet of torque. 500 pound-feet of torque here out of a premium, not a GT. That's what makes this crossover so impressive. Why this EV is different from most of its competitors. Not so much the Ioniq 5 these days, but compared to the Volkswagen ID4, the Nissan Ariya, and then also most likely its closest rival, the Tesla Model Y, it can match the Tesla Model Y in terms of performance while also giving you an exhilarating driving experience. You have the lower center of gravity, but you also have the performance to go along with it. So on those winding back roads, you can have a lot of fun. Now, one thing we haven't talked about yet, though, is the recharge times with this extended range battery. So 300 miles, that's pretty good here if you're going on a road trip or daily driving this model. But at a DC fast charger, you can go from 10 to 80% in about 30 to 35 minutes, which seems to be pretty standard here for most EVs in this market, below 50 grand. So if you are on those road trips, you're not gonna be sitting there too long waiting for this battery to recharge. But while we're here, let's talk about this, the ability to open the hood. Because for 2026, Ford has made this an option. The frunk is optional and it will cost you. Now, some people have gone overboard here. They freaked out over this one feature because you're only looking at 4.5 cubic feet of room. You're not gonna fit a lot of stuff there. No bags, no groceries. So most of your practicality is gonna be out back. Let's check that out. With this being the premium, you are going to receive a power liftgate. And inside, behind the second row seats, you're looking at right around 29 cubic feet of room. That is compact crossover territory right there. That would be in line with, say, a Subaru Forester. And with this lifted hatchback design, I was able to fit everything back here throughout my week with the Ford Mustang Mach-E. That includes 3 bags of camera gear, a gimbal box, and a tripod, but also I could go grocery shopping as well with the Ford Mustang Mach-E, even with my camera gear. I like that flexibility. Now, when you lower the second row seats, you're looking at right around 58 cubic feet of room. Not going to be class leading for what this crossover is all about, but just enough to make it useful if you do live in the city and you have a smaller family. Beneath the floor mat, you are going to find an additional storage compartment for your charging cables and obviously your adapter. So I like to see that here. Maybe you could even store that up front if you are someone looking to maximize that practicality out of the Ford Mustang Mach-E. Hopping inside this Ford Mustang Mach-E we're taking a look at today, we are greeted by power adjustable, heated and ventilated ActiveX seats for both the driver and passenger, with the driver's side having 3-position memory for added convenience. One thing that's worth mentioning here is that if you don't want to go with the premium and you want to save about $10,000 compared to the model we're taking a look at today, you can go with the Select, and the Select also gives you ActiveX seats with the option for heated front seats and a heated steering wheel like we have here today. Now, one thing I do want to point out, though, is that with the Ford Mustang Mach-E, it is somewhat sports-tuned. This is a crossover that most certainly is worthy of the Mustang name, and the question is, can these seats provide that comfort and also that support? And thankfully, it can. Whether you're on the back roads or you're in the city, you're going to find yourself nice and snug here, and it will give you the comfort you demand and expect at around $50,000. In front of you will be a heated steering wheel, which does feel really nice in the hands. Aggressive 10 and 2 and firm 9 and 3 grips. You're also going to notice the red contrasting stitching through the sports appearance package. That's also seen on the door panels, the dashboard, and these seats. You're going to notice that full digital gauge cluster, which is quite static, doesn't change up very much at all. You're going to notice your remaining range, your traffic sign recognition, your digital speedometer, the basics. You're also going to notice on this particular Ford Mustang Mach-E we're taking a look at today, we have BlueCruise. Now, through BlueCruise, you're essentially using fully autonomous technology there on the highway. We'll dive into that during the test drive. However, what draws most of your attention and kind of makes up most of the interior inside the Ford Mustang Mach-E is this massive tablet-like touchscreen with wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto compatibility to go along with onboard navigation. And because we have the premium, we have the Bang & Olufsen sound system to amplify the audio of your favorite music. Personally, I don't think this head unit is it. I really don't. It's showing its age, because this is when Ford and a lot of other legacy manufacturers were trying to replicate Tesla. And I don't think many Americans wanted that. And seeing as though that manufacturers are putting in physical buttons again, this needs to happen for the Ford Mustang Mach-E in the future at some point. However, it is quite basic after you get used to it, because at the bottom of the screen will be your quick access icons for your dual zone climate control, your AC, front and rear defrosters, fan speed, fan direction. You're going to notice a physical volume knob as well. And then beneath that will be your heated and ventilated seats, your heated steering wheel, fan speed, and also your max AC. Back at the top of the screen will be icons that will get you to your menus, but then also your vehicle settings. And from here, you can scroll through everything, such as your drive mode selector for whisper, engage, unbridled. It's also here where you can open the trunk and the frunk, which is nice. And on the left side will be more settings for your sound, driver assistance, vehicle, general connectivity, etc. Next to that will be your camera settings. So from here, you're going to have a top view camera, front-facing camera, and this gives you a lot of visibility if you are parking on city streets or parking in a garage. Obviously, you're going to have your smartphone connectivity and Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. But when you do get to your menu settings, here you're going to have all these widgets for radio, phone, navigation, media, Stingray karaoke. Also, you will have some entertainment too. You can turn on YouTube, you're going to have games to play. Still think it's a gimmick, but it's here if you are charging up your car and you want to spend some time doing something other than looking at your phone. Now, when you do place the Mustang Mach-E in reverse, you are going to receive a rear backup camera with trajectory, and I like the fact that it does take up most of the screen, giving you that visibility more importantly. Beneath that, here we have the center console, which there's really not much to it. You have a USB-C and USB-A outlet to go along with a wireless phone charging pad and a tray for an additional smartphone, 2 cup holders. Then you're going to notice some physical buttons here. Pretty much your only physical buttons for your park assist features, your hazards, your electronic parking brake, and then you're going to have more storage compartments for, say, a key fob. Then for the center storage compartment, enough room for some smaller items, maybe a small water bottle or two, 2 USB-C outlets, a 12-volt outlet, and that's basically it there, but a good amount of practicality. And then to round out the front seating area, above we don't have the optional sunroof. I don't think it's really necessary here if you are looking at buying a vehicle like this and you don't want your Mustang Mach-E to turn into a greenhouse. Moving on for passengers in the second row, you're looking at right around 38 inches of legroom, which is kind of respectable here. I mean, even comparing this to a traditional crossover with an internal combustion engine, that's not too far off, say, a Mazda CX-5. It's only 2 inches less than a Volkswagen Tiguan, a Toyota RAV4, Kia Sportage. So very flexible, very practical. Also, with this being somewhat of a lifted hatchback, you would think that you'd have a lower roofline. But that isn't the case. Also helps you don't have that sunroof. I don't think taller passengers will be hitting their head on the headliner, and even better than that, you have a flat floor. So I do think you can try squeezing in a third person in the center. Not only is this vehicle city-friendly, but it's also family-friendly as well. Back here, you're going to find 2 USB-C outlets to go along with 2 center-mounted air vents. And then to round out the second row seating area, you are going to receive a center armrest with 2 cup holders. For most EV buyers today, it's possible that gas prices are steering you towards this direction. You don't want to deal with having to fill up all the time. Maybe some of you want to be environmentally conscious. But most EV owners love one feature in particular, and that is one-pedal drive. So I decided to come to the Seaport in Boston to test this out. This is the first. We've never done this before on the channel. So as we approach this intersection, it comes to a complete stop. Very aggressive. Now, typically, people prefer Tesla in that regard. Tesla allows that. And as we're going to discover, the Ford Mustang Mach-E gives you technology that I would say is competitive. I'm not going to go as far to say that it's better than Tesla, but competitive technology that if you're someone who doesn't want to buy a Tesla, you want something from a mainstream manufacturer, the Ford Mustang Mach-E is going to provide that. And one-pedal drive, as we're demonstrating right here, I'm not even on the brake pedal, it works. It's very strong. It is perfect for city driving because it responds so quickly if someone is crossing the street or someone pulls out, taking a turn, because everyone's in a rush in Boston. The regen braking is going to respond a lot quicker than you manually braking. And that's one thing I've noticed here with the Mustang Mach-E is that the way in which this vehicle was engineered and designed, it rides so much better with regen braking on and one-pedal drive that you will likely never turn it off. And if you do, you're going to realize the mistake you made, because the one-pedal drive is so good. And I think the braking itself, when you're manually braking, it's not responsive at all. So in stop-and-go traffic, it is perfect. Taking on the bumps and imperfections here, I will say this, there are times where the Mustang Mach-E feels kind of floaty, and it is somewhat stiff. It's not a luxury crossover by any stretch of the imagination. That's one thing that I haven't really enjoyed out of the Mach-E. I tend to stay clear of city roads just because it does not handle Boston potholes well at all. And then there's times where there's dips and you're just floating right along. So out of the Mustang Mach-E, it's still mainstream. It's a mainstream vehicle. And obviously you got to walk into this vehicle with that type of expectations, that it's not going to be something like a Cadillac Lyriq or a BMW iX, for example. This is still a crossover that's coming in below $50,000. So it's going to have that sub $50,000 feel. While I am in the city, one thing I am going to point out are the A-pillars. They are pretty aggressive, and there are a good amount of blind spots here. That's one thing that I've had to be very careful of driving through the city of Boston, that there's just a lot of people and they are in my blind spots, whether they're pedestrians or cars. In terms of the maneuverability, the Mustang Mach-E is set up perfectly for city streets like this. Because it's narrow, it's not long, you can park on city streets with no problem. And if there is someone who is double parked, you can easily get around them. And the handling of this crossover not only translates in the city, but also in the suburbs and on those winding back roads. I have been accused of saying that every EV drives the same. And I'm going to stand by that. A lot of EVs tend to drive the same. Some vehicles do feel a bit quicker, obviously, but the same principles apply. They all handle great. You have a lower center of gravity, and to some degree they are athletic and sports tuned because of all of that. The Mustang Mach-E, though, combines the fact that you have that lower center of gravity, the weight of the battery and electric motors, but gives you firm and crisp handling that you do get out of an S650, that you get out of a full gas-powered Mustang. And what's awesome here is that, yes, it's an EV, yes, it's a bit more disconnected than a vehicle with an internal combustion engine, but you can still have a lot of fun. And what I've noticed here throughout my week is that even in unbridled mode, I'm not losing a lot on range. Maybe during the winter that'll be a different story. But I like the fact that you can have some fun and it's not a major sacrifice. Also, you don't draw a lot of attention to yourself either, because there's not a lot of noise coming out of this car. So even though it is being pumped out so you don't run people over like you would with a regular gas-powered Mustang, you can kind of glide your way through life here, and no one's even going to notice what you're up to and what you're doing. Despite the fact that it is a crossover that is going head-to-head with a Chevrolet Equinox EV, Volkswagen ID4, it's most certainly car-like. It's hatchback-like. And you see that with the dimensions, you see that with the road stance, and that, I think, is one of the standouts here with the Mustang Mach-E. That the Equinox, maybe with the RS, would be a bit of a different take and story, but with the Mach-E, it doesn't have that crossover feel. It has a car-like demeanor that, even in this class, I do like seeing. Into the corners, it is so confident, it is flat. And it's uncanny having this ability. And this is where a car like this, if you're an enthusiast, if you're someone who does have a Mustang in the garage, you can still have fun on your weekday commutes. And it's because of this, and I've gotten the opportunity to experience this EV twice now, living with it, I'm okay with the Mustang name being stamped onto this vehicle. Especially now with Ford coming out with a sedan in around 2028 or 2029. You're going to have an entire lineup of cars with the Mustang emblem that give you performance, that gives you the fun factor, and also a sense of practicality. It's just that for the Mustang Mach-E, it's electric, so efficient. And for a lot of cars in this class, a lot of electric vehicles, this is where the Mustang Mach-E sets itself apart, especially at this price point, and for a model not wearing the GT badge, because this is just a premium. And if a premium can put a smile on my face, imagine what a GT would do with that performance, with that extra performance and that propulsion. Like that. It's kind of intoxicating. And that's one thing you're not going to get out of internal combustion engines for vehicles at this price point, or for a vehicle that would be a gas equivalent, such as a Ford Escape. You weren't getting that out of a crossover like that. So the Mustang Mach-E, okay, it's electrified. It's a full EV product, but it's fun and enjoyable, while also being practical and, in some people's eyes, sensible. But what about on the highway? Well, we have a party trick here, because this Ford Mustang Mach-E has BlueCruise. And with BlueCruise, it is a hands-off experience. I'm leaving my hands on the steering wheel though. What's great here is that if it senses a slow driver in front of you, it automatically changes lanes with no input. Not even telling the car to do that. That's pretty cool. So that way you're always maintaining the same speed. And this is such an improvement over the adaptive cruise control and lane centering system that I had in the Ford F-150 Tremor. Because with the Tremor, it had difficulty sensing my hands on the steering wheel. That isn't the case here with the Mustang Mach-E. What I also like too is that if there are times where I have to override the system, like right now I want to pass that Suburban, it allows me to without kicking itself out of BlueCruise. I really like that. I like that a lot. So if there are times where I have to take over, it allows me to. So while we're on the highway though, let's take out the handy dandy decibel meter and see what the interior insulation is like without having a sunroof, and also what it's like inside the premium. So I got 68 decibels, if you guys can read that. That's about a decibel and a half lower than the Ford F-150 Tremor and the 4Runner Trailhunter, and also quieter than the Lexus NX 350h and the Acura ADX. It's not that bad. Now, one thing I have noticed here is that the windows themselves, though, are not insulated that well. So if a car passes by you, it really picks up, and you hear that. That's one thing I haven't noticed with my other test vehicles that I've been able to do this test with. So that's one of the drawbacks. Yes, it's quiet because there's no engine, and at least in front of you, this windshield is nicely insulated, but the side windows aren't. That's one thing I've definitely noticed here. But let's turn off BlueCruise and just ride along here. And much like you're going to see on back roads, it has a nice lower center of gravity, it is composed, and it stays in its lane. And just like I said 4 years ago when I reviewed this crossover and lived with it, it feels conventional, it performs conventional, it even looks conventional. And a lot of EVs from mainstream competitors have gone all in on the futuristic aspect of these platforms, the technology. Ford actually gave you a vehicle that in some ways almost has this escape-like design and escape-like feel. And if you're someone who is ready to make that leap but you're a bit apprehensive, the Mustang Mach-E is one of those crossovers that you can hop into and feel right at home. And that's why I've always liked this crossover. I've always liked this EV, because for someone like myself who likes internal combustion, I could see myself driving this and owning this on a daily basis. So guys, let me know what you think here about the Ford Mustang Mach-E. Is this the ideal EV? Is this the well-rounded EV coming in below $50,000? Or are you going to look elsewhere? Let me know. But guys, once again, thanks so much for watching. Take care, and I will see you guys next time.